First video we about to react to is why flawed abilities are more interesting. One thing I definitely like about anime is just the versatility in different shows and how they show their power scaling. You feel me? I've always watched anime growing up. You're welcome to the stream, welcome to the stream, welcome to the stream. And seeing a lot of the different power scaling and different abilities and how they break it down and the science, but in the history behind different power levels and different things like that in anime and whatnot. It just captivates me a lot, and I really wanna you know what I'm saying, share some of my thoughts on that. So let's get into the video. Why flawed abilities are more interesting.
Question: at what point in a story are the protagonist's abilities at their most interesting? If you take a moment to really think about it, the vast majority of you will probably come to the same conclusion, that it's at the tail end of the series. And I completely understand that viewpoint.
Right.
By the end of the story, the protagonist has likely reached the pinnacle of their strength, perfecting every skill they've picked up since the beginning, and often unlocking some kind of god-tier endgame power that ends up defining their character in all future power scaling debates. And for the most part, I completely agree with this perspective. There's definitely something satisfying about seeing a protagonist you've grown attached to fully master their abilities.
12 months? Yeah, thank you for the 12-month subscription. No, that's crazy. That's crazy. Hey, no ads for you for a year? Damn, that's exclusive access right there.
But even
thank you.
I've always had a soft spot for a different period in their growth. Right around, say, the 30% mark of the story, when they've unlocked their long-term abilities, but they're still rough around the edges, unpolished, learning. Because to a large degree, I believe there is a kind of beauty in imperfect abilities. One that allows writers to create more engaging scenarios and battles than perfect abilities allow. So what is it that makes these flawed, incomplete powers so interesting? How do great writers portray the early stages of a character's growth in a way that's compelling? And what are some standout examples of this being done well? That's what we'll be exploring in today's video. So stick around, you might just learn something important. So why do I enjoy the protagonist's imperfect abilities more than their fully realized endgame version? Well, it all comes down to one thing: flaws. When designing an ability, there's a sort of trifecta of flaws that a writer should consider. Each element adds depth, and together, they shape how the ability interacts with the story.
No cap. Yo,
the first of
welcome
these
to the stream,
is the
welcome to the
weakness,
stream.
and is actually the least important of the three. Weaknesses are what counter the ability. It's useful to have a few in mind when crafting powers. Some writers go for hard counters.
So right now we're watching a video on why flawed abilities are more interesting, and basically breaking down anime powers and things like that. Because I'm a huge like shonen enjoyer. I will say, you know what I'm saying. I'm not an elitist in any way, shape, or form. You know what I'm saying. I wouldn't say that I could be, just because like I watch anime literally in one night. I will finish an anime. I will literally binge that shit till it's over. So you know what I'm saying, when it comes down to this shit, like it's really interesting to me, just like I said in the beginning, the history, the science behind it, the intricacies, the limits, the drawbacks, and the weaknesses of all these abilities, and how you can counter some of the godlike abilities with just minor things. You feel me? Straight knowledge.
Like an ability that becomes completely useless in the light.
You might be stronger,
while others opt for a more indirect
but I'm smarter.
Like situational disadvantages. But overall, this is the most superficial layer. The next trifecta is the limitations of the ability. These refer to the upper bounds of what the ability can actually achieve, the limits of its destructive power, the maximum output the user can reach, or the points where the character can't push it further. It defines the ceiling of their potential, at least for now. And then there's the drawback, which I believe is the most important and interesting piece of this trifecta. Drawbacks are consequences that directly punish the user for misusing or overusing their powers. Think of a character.
Who's my favorite anime character? I can only pick one. It would have to be Benimaru from Fire Force, just because like Y'all seen that? Y'all seen his power? Like
Burns
at the end of the show, this nigga like literally like he became as strong as like this is a spoiler if you haven't seen it already, but if you ain't seen it already, you know what I'm saying, go watch it before you hear what I gotta say. Come back and then listen to this. But Benny Morrow basically basically he's stronger than all of humanity assumed he was as a they assumed that he was a god deity, and he ended up being stronger than that. And he would laugh at how strong that they thought he was. He's the GOAT. Can't change my mind on that.
themselves by
And then even in the next iteration, in Soul Eater, he was still strong as fuck. He was the literally the strongest being in existence, up next to God. So like, oh shit. It was like back here. Okay.
misusing or overusing their powers.
I know
Think
YouTube
of a
gonna hate me
character
for
who
pausing.
burns themselves by pushing their fire abilities too far, or someone who suffers painful recoil from pushing their body beyond its limits. These drawbacks ground the power in risk and consequence, and that makes them fascinating. And therein lies the main issue with polished endgame abilities.
Right.
Writers often completely erase this entire trifecta. As characters grow stronger,
Yeah.
abilities tend to lose their limitations. What once had a strict boundary
They're in
now
Soul
feels
Eater.
limitless. Counters become irrelevant because the power is so versatile it can adapt to anything. And
It's
worst
not the
of
main
all,
focus.
the drawbacks, the essential elements of tension, are dropped altogether. And why is this a problem? Well, because you lose tension. You lose the sense of risk, of vulnerability, of creative problem solving. Flawed abilities act like puzzles. The protagonist has to think, adapt, and sometimes
You gotta
even
watch the
suffer to
follow
make
up to
them
Fire
work.
Force,
That
or like see
struggle adds a layer
the.
of complexity to the writing, and when it's gone, something vital is lost. And no part of storytelling makes this more obvious than with transformations. Only blah 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 percent, whatever. Okay, let's make a deal. If this number goes up to 4% by my next video,
I be
I will
saying
not
that.
make one of these
I be
subscriber
saying this
breaks
too.
for the next 3. Okay? Deal.
I be saying the
Back to
same
the
thing.
video.
Sub
To
up.
be honest, I've never
on
really
YouTube.
loved transformations as abilities. Most of the time, instead of offering some unique new power or creative twist, they usually serve as a glorified stat boost. The character moves faster, the character hits harder, the character tanks more damage, and that's it. Just look at Ichigo's perfected Hollow Mask as one example.
All right, I might
It's
be
just
wrong.
a flat boost to his physical abilities.
We said in one of the other videos, niggas just be talking about the ass. But like, if you watch the end of Fire Force, when Shinra fucking recreates the world and shit, you know, the captain and all of them become like the new government, and you know, yo, tipped 100.
And less than free tip 100.
What the fuck?
Smile.
Damn.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We have been
Yes,
working hella
sir.
hard. Thank you so much for the tip. Much appreciated. Thank you. Oh my God. Damn, a hundo. Damn, you already know what it is. Make sure you come through to the lives and check us out. You feel me? I'm fucking tired. Oh my God. W's in the chat. W's in the chat. What the
Sure,
fuck?
his attacks are black now or whatever. Whoa, cool. But there's nothing really interesting going on besides him being stronger. Now compare these so-called
We gotta make sure we get
complete
through these
transformations
reactions.
to the ones displayed earlier on in the series, and it becomes clear how much more compelling these early transformations were.
But we're gonna start doing definitely doing you know what I'm saying, end of stream recaps on subs, donos, and different things like that to show appreciation yet again, because you guys don't have to do this. You know what I'm saying? You're coming out of your way to watch the streams, to chill with the boy, and you know what I'm saying, and support. And it really means a lot. From the bottom of my heart, it means a lot. Thank you so much for y'all being here.
One aspect that
Back to
makes
the video.
these early transformations so much better is the introduction of the berserk state, where the character can only tap into their power
Love a good berserk
while
state.
enraged or under extreme stress.
When it's written well.
Losing control of themselves while doing
Gone,
so. And I have to
top
say,
tier.
I absolutely love these. Just take a look at Naruto's version 2.
Naruto 2. Oh my god, bro. Is QB transformations? Cinema.
He can only access this form when emotionally overwhelmed, but the power increase is insane.
WNs, yeah.
It's destructive, raw, and comes with serious consequences. Unlike the perfected chakra cloak, which has almost no drawbacks, version 2 carries a real...
W6 2, 12 months worth of a subscription. Yeah. Juwan, welcome back, my boy. Hey, thank you for gifting a sub to the community too. Shout out to you too, bro. Literally, everybody's pitching in, bro. Making the dream come true for sure. And bro, it's gonna pay off because I'm not gonna stop. Once we blow up, hey, everybody here is the OGs. It's 2 a.m. And look, we all here. Watching some reactions. YouTube, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for pausing. I'm sorry. But if you're not getting the vibes, because you're not here. Get over here. Even at 2 in the morning. I got y'all. Fall asleep, bro. Just put it on the background.
Sense of urgency. The red cloak is literally formed by his blood boiling, cutting down his lifespan and destroying his cells. So even though we know Naruto gains the power to turn the tide of battle, we're still stressed watching it, wondering how he'll manage the aftermath. Or take Ichigo's earlier version of the Hollow Mask. Zangetsu would only step in when Ichigo was desperate, and even then, there was a constant threat of his inner hollow taking control.
I'm gonna edit tomorrow.
Every single time Ichigo was forced to use this form, it represented a failure of his ideals, having to borrow strength from the more primal version of himself, introducing an internal and deeper
It literally
power
takes me like
struggle.
no time to edit, bro.
These forms are so great because they introduce a second layer of tension. It's no longer just about winning the fight, it's also about managing the transformation itself.
Yeah.
The protagonist is walking a tightrope, balancing risk with power and control. The limitation is that they can only access the form under extreme stress, and the drawback is that when they do, no one around them, not even themselves, is truly safe. But if you want an example of an early series transformation without the inner struggle dynamic, look no further than Kaioken. If you were to ask me what my favorite Dragon Ball transformation was, well, I'd have to go with the most iconic choice and say Super Saiyan. But don't get it twisted, Kaioken is right there behind it. Kaioken is a simple yet effective transformation that perfectly balances risk and reward, allowing the users to tap into increasingly higher multiplications of power at the cost of damaging their body. What I especially love about this transformation is how variable and dynamic it is. Goku can decide how far to push it moment to moment, sometimes dipping into higher multipliers extremely briefly to minimize damage, while generally maintaining a safer range.
This
That
is
element
crazy
of
to
choice
watch.
and
It's like a
strategy
fucking
is what makes it way
6-year-old
more
kid.
engaging than basic transformations.
Imagine watching
that
this
just
shit
hand
brand
out
new
stat
today.
boosts with no real
All right, brother. Good
consequences.
night.
Now for the real reason I made this video. To rant about how One For All was more interesting in the first 2 seasons than in the entire rest of the show. I'm just kidding. Kind of. Super strength is one of the most overused powers in all of fiction. Superman, Spider-Man.
Not gonna lie, I feel like for My Hero, I didn't really care for their power scaling. It really was like kind of like determined before birth, like or some shit. It felt like, you know, even if it wasn't, it was just genes, and it's like a lottery. Like you can get the worst of the worst, like transformation or like abilities, or you can get like just blessed with the best, and now you're the GOAT. Like it's kind of like I wasn't really fucking with it. One For All was kind of cool how it tapped into previous powers of the people who obtained it, but like
At this point, literally every shonen power system has it bundled in like it's part of a starter kit. But the early version of One For All, that was one of the most unique takes on super strength I had ever seen, and that's all because of its ridiculous drawback. Hirokoshi nailed the raw impact of the ability by making it physically destructive, not just to the environment, but to the user themselves. When Deku used One For All early on, his limbs literally shattered. And it's not just that.
Yeah, no cap. That was
the wind
devastating,
howled and the air physically bent with every single punch. We as the audience didn't need to be told that One For All was strong. We could see it for ourselves. Remember when All Might literally changed the weather with a single punch? That's how you sell power. But what really sold One For All as special to me was the toll it took, the drawback. Seeing Deku burn through his own limbs like they're bullets in a chamber, shattering fingers, breaking arms, using already broken limbs to keep fighting, it's one of the sickest dynamics I've seen come out of a power system. Sure, he inevitably had to evolve past this level of self-destruction, but for me, that broken version of One For All, the version that majorly cost him something, is more interesting than any of the 6 quirks they later slapped onto him. And one of my favorite tropes to come out of this is when a character manages to use their abilities' drawbacks to their advantage. You don't get to see those kinds of scenarios with perfect abilities. Like with solo leveling, every single time an opponent tries to poison Jinwoo, nothing fucking happens because he's completely immune and his ability has no drawbacks nor limitations. I just roll my eyes because of how boring that is. Now compare that to Deku deliberately breaking his own fingers with One For All to break out of Shinso's brainwashing, and you can instantly tell which of these two scenarios is more interesting to me. But in my opinion, no one puts their flawed ability to the use better than Yuji Itadori. For most of Jujutsu Kaisen, Yuji is technically powerless.
Straight boxer.
Compared to other sorcerers, he doesn't have a flashy curse technique. What he does have is inhuman super strength and dysfunctional cursed energy control, which again sounds basic, but luckily, Gege knew how to take a flaw and turn it into a feature. Enter Divergent Fist. At first glance, it's not even a real technique. Rather, it's an unfortunate side effect of Yuji being unable to sync his cursed energy with his punches properly. But because of this flaw, Yuji's attacks gain a delayed second impact. It's much weaker than a perfectly timed curse-infused punch, but if used properly, it does manage to catch opponents off guard. And that trade-off is what makes it interesting. Yuji is forced to fight with this handicap, but he does manage to use it to his advantage. Again and again, Divergent Fist is capable of messing with opponents' timing and opening up opportunities. And even after Yuji learns how to properly infuse his strikes, he still falls back on it when the timing is right. Because even a flawed tool can be turned into a deadly weapon if used properly. So what is the point I'm trying to make?
That nigga's the GOAT.
Well, it's simple. Flawed abilities are interesting because they force creativity. They demand a certain kind of growth, not just in raw power, but in how a character thinks. And that struggle, that tension, that give and take,
don't really care.
That's where some of the most compelling storytelling happens. When abilities are too clean, too perfect, too convenient, they stop being tools for character development and just become bait for flash.
Yeah, it definitely can stalemate the show into being like, I really don't. It's cool, but it's like it can get very old. I definitely agree with that. It can get very old. Very quickly when like the fight's just like you just know it's gonna be over. You just don't know how long it's gonna take. Like, is he gonna play with them, or like how much more time are we gonna spend on this? Because like just wrap it up. Y'all making him struggle for what? Bro's flexing. I mean, unless it's like for plot, like then explain it in a way that makes it like funny or entertaining to me, rather than it being like a false like. What's the feeling of like dread? Yeah, a false feeling, sense of dread when everything's gonna be okay at the end.
Animation sequences.
That would be like spoilers that I hate when it's like you can expect that it's gonna be over quick.
Or Sakuga compilations. But when they're unpredictable, risky, or dangerous to the user, that's when characters rise above their limits. Not just by overpowering the enemy, but also by outsmarting their own flaws. So yeah, no one is denying the fact that endgame power-ups are cool. Everyone loves seeing a protagonist at their peak. But I'll always have a soft spot for that messy middle stage, where the protagonist is still figuring it out, where every fight feels like a gamble, and when victory really and truly mean something, because it's those moments of hopeful desperation that make a story compelling in the first place.
I ain't say it.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, let me know what your favorite.
It was a solid breakdown. I will say, you know what I'm saying, he could have gone a little more into depth with different power scales, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe in my head I was thinking of something that was more of the lines of like he was gonna like talk about the different drawbacks and things like that. But in the end, Hunter x Hunter has the best power scaling. Fight me in the comments. I don't care. Hit the like button and subscribe to the Noti Bell. We'll see you in the next one.